It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Glenn Fueston Jr. is an innovative and collaborative thought leader skilled in directing and implementing organizational vision and change. What that really means is he's got great ideas and he can help to make things change. Appointed to the position of Executive Director for the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention by Governor Larry Hogan in March 2016. Mr. Fueston has called on an extensive background in criminal justice and crime prevention to carry out Governor Hogan's vision to make Maryland safer for citizens who work, visit, or make the state their home. Mr. Fueston is an expert in such areas as big data collection and analysis, managing confidential and top-secret law enforcement security programs, overseeing high-level policies of local and national importance, and developing and implementing process improvement programs. As Executive Director of GOCCP, he's worked to enhance and improve many of their long-standing programs while creating new ones that focus on such issues as victim services, human trafficking, dismantling and disrupting and gangs and violent crimes, along with streamlining and improving the agency's grant process that ensure accountability. He oversees a staff of over 70 and a budget of $166 million. A native of Myrtle Beach, Mr. Fueston has earned dual bachelor's degrees in psychology and communications from Salisbury University and a master's degree in human resource management from Towson University. Please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Glenn Fueston Jr. Knock him dead, buddy.
We'll see. Give away money. Good afternoon. How is everybody? Really? How is everybody? Come on. Yeah? All right. I was going to say I have younger children, and they can get a lot louder than that. So that's just all you're going to give me? Yeah? One more time. How's everybody doing? All right. Very good. Well, it's great to have an opportunity to come out and speak to you today. And Mike, I wanted to thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation to be here. What a great event. You guys having a good time so far? Have you had a chance to walk around and see all the different vendors and the people sharing information? Yeah? Yeah, still getting out there. Great. So what is the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention? First of all, has anybody ever heard of it? No? You can say no. Go Cap? Not even some of the adults in the room? Never heard of it? Yeah. Thanks. My staff is raising their hands. I appreciate it. So the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, we work directly with the governor, Governor Larry Hogan, in order to come up with ideas to reduce crime in the state of Maryland. Prevent crime in the state of Maryland. So what kind of crimes are we looking at? What kind of crimes are you guys familiar with? What's that? Robbery, okay. What else? Drugs. What kind of drugs are you seeing? Marijuana? All right. What other drugs are you seeing? Cocaine? I can't hear a word you're saying, so I'm reading your lips. Heroin? LSD? Yeah. Meth? Fentanyl? Yes. What else do we got? Oxycontin? Gotcha. So all of these are impacting our communities, and we see them impacting our communities on a daily basis. They're impacting your communities. You're seeing them in schools. We're seeing it in our communities on a regular basis. And what our office is trying to do is trying to address that threat. One of the ways that we're doing that is partnering with people in the community in order to look at it from three different perspectives. We're looking at it from an enforcement perspective. We're looking at it from a treatment perspective. We're looking at it from a victim service perspective and a prevention perspective. So those different areas is the way that we're looking at reducing crime and how it's impacting our communities. Through the law enforcement component, one of the things that we're doing is trying to work on collaboration. And it's something that we learned today and we saw people talking about today as we were walking around, getting different entities to work together. Very similar to what you might be doing in your schools and what you might be doing on a class project, working together in order to make a change. So we have a project called the Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network. And what it is our law enforcement partners work together to share information about different crimes that are occurring in the state. And we look at these crimes at a very holistic level. We look at it from a trafficking level. We look at the gangs that are operating in the area. Is anybody familiar with gangs that are operating in your area? Yeah. And we look at drug trafficking. We look at people that are bringing drugs into our region. We look at human trafficking. We look at sex trafficking. We look at firearm trafficking, all of these different types of crimes that are occurring in our region to see who's committing these crimes and how these different threats are impacting our communities. We work with law enforcement in order to put that information into a single location so that they're familiar with the people that are impacting us, and we can share that across the state, and we can share that across the region, and we can do international investigations as well. We're very fortunate that Carroll County is one of the leaders in the Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network, and your state's attorney, Brian DiLeonardo, is running that. He's actually in the back of the room now, who runs that and coordinates with several different law enforcement agencies that are working on that now. Mr. DiLeonardo also chairs the Governor's Council on Gangs and Violent Criminal Networks, so that's another way that the governor can partner with agencies around the state in order to reduce crime. And in Carroll County right now, as I said, the state's attorney's office, as well as the Westminster, Sykesville, and Mount Airy police departments are all working together in order to address this through the Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network. And again, they're addressing gangs and those different types. Is anybody familiar with, you mentioned heroin earlier, right? Someone mentioned fentanyl earlier as well. Is anybody familiar with how heroin and fentanyl get into the region? How? That's how it gets into your body, yes. That's not how it gets into your region. Drug dealers, drug traffickers, yeah. What's that? Gets imported? Yeah, it does get imported. So a lot of the heroin that we see coming into the region actually gets trafficked from out of the country. We don't see poppy fields that are in Carroll County or anything to that effect. So we see this drug being imported from different countries like Venezuela, from Mexico, and then it's trafficked up through the East Coast or through the central route of the United States up into this area for distribution by the gangs and the other things. And that's one of the things that the Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network is working to address. So some of the other ways that we're looking to address crime in the state is we're looking at prevention, how we can go about preventing these crimes from occurring before they even started. So we've partnered, the governor created last year a program called Handle with Care. Has anybody heard of Handle with Care in your schools? No? And what the Handle with Care program is, it's a program that we're partnering with law enforcement and with the school community so that if law enforcement comes to anybody's house and sees a high-risk behavior or sees something like a traumatic event that's occurred at a house, they can contact the school and let the school know that they've seen this activity occur at the school. And then that will instigate the counseling center to get engaged with you or with your friends or with somebody else in another school in order to talk through the incident and so that you can flourish even in the instance where there's been a traumatic incident. And if you haven't heard that in your school, you certainly should talk to your guidance counselors or anybody along those lines in order to get more information about these programs and how they can be supportive. Another way that we're working on reducing crime in the county is through our victim services programs. So through victim services, what we're doing is we're bringing together several different providers together so that they can provide support to the community. And what we're trying to do is work with victims, crime victims in particular, that have experienced some type of violent crime, or some crime incident, in order to help them feel safer, more self-sufficient, and get greater access to information. And we do that through 4 different methods. We're working with people to bring money into the county. Mike mentioned when we introduced this that we oversee about $180 million worth of grant funds for the governor. Some of those funds are coming to Carroll County in order to provide victim services. We've been able to provide services for over 500,000 victims across the state. And those victims in Carroll County, we've been able to provide at least 1,200 victims of crimes with services just this past year. And the types of crimes that we're looking at is we're looking at domestic violence, we're looking at abuse, we're looking at human trafficking, we're looking at drug trafficking, we're looking at different things that are impacting the community in order to make those victims whole again. And the governor also moved different resources underneath of our control so that we could provide those types of services to you and to the community. Some of the examples of that are also what we're doing in the children's community. We're working with the Governor's Office of Children in order to bring those services to the community as well. And with those services, the Governor's Office of Children are looking at things like youth homelessness, hunger issues, and they're looking at different programs that will make the youth in our community feel whole again and be able to flourish in our communities. So as I keep talking, I talk about these different programs, and I just realized that I'm on camera and I'm walking back and forth, and I apologize for you. I'll stand still now. What kind of questions do you have for me about crime in the state of Maryland and how the governor's addressing it? No questions about crime in the state of Maryland? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. No? So the question was, is there more or less crime in the state of Maryland since Governor Hogan took office? So since Governor Hogan took office, our ranking amongst other states has actually gotten better. So crime in the state is getting better amongst the other states that are in the union. What else? What other questions do you have? What do you got? Oh, yep. I'm sorry, one more time. The most common types of crime in Maryland. So in terms of the most common types of crimes that are occurring in Maryland, it really depends on how you want to break that down. Like if you want to look at youth crime, if you want to look at adult crime, if you want to look at drug crimes, if you want to look at violent crimes and the like. Right now, Governor Hogan has our office focused on violent crime. So most of what we're looking at are the most violent crimes that are occurring in the state, which are rape, homicide, robbery, abuse, and those types of crimes. And we'll see that continue to increase. What we're obviously seeing is we're seeing drugs, and we're seeing drug trafficking going up. We hear someone talked about the opioid problem, and we're seeing that across the country. We're starting to see some impact on that, but we certainly see the challenges that we're running into with the opioid epidemic. What else? What other questions do you have? You, yes. I couldn't hear you. Can you stand up? Or Robbie, could you? Can you hear her, Robbie? So is the other question, do other counties have similar problems? Yes. Is that what your question was? No? Well, come up here. So the question was, do other counties have the same type of awareness and similar types of expos as you having right now? And what I was told, I'm not aware of other counties, but I was just told, I believe, that Frederick is demoing one, is that correct? That Frederick is demoing an expo, but Carroll County is certainly leading the way in having an expo like this to bring this kind of awareness to the community. So maybe it's something we can bring back to Baltimore County. Can't hear you. Areas with the highest rate of crime. It really depends on when you look at the rate of crime and how you calculate the rate of crime. So if you look at the number of crimes, it also depends on specifically where you're at. So Baltimore, for example, has a high level of particular crimes, but if you adjust for the crime rate, that actually drops. I don't have that memorized, but you can look across the county, or you can go to our website, goccp.maryland.gov, and it has a listing of all the different crimes that you have adjusted by population. Yeah. I'm not going to hear it, Robin. Come on up. So the question was, have drug overdoses increase or decrease in the state of Maryland? So the way that we're looking at that right now is in the state of Maryland, specifically when we look at heroin, we had about 2,100 fatal overdoses last year for heroin overdoses. Over the last 3 years, 16, 17, and 18, we've had over 6,000 overdose deaths. What we're seeing happen with overdoses and with the deaths from overdoses is it's actually changing. If you go back to 2014 and 2015, you would hear us a lot talking about heroin and the overdose problem that we have with heroin. Now what you're seeing is us talking about the fentanyl problem. Some of them mentioned fentanyl before. So we're seeing fentanyl being mixed in with heroin still, but that number is actually dropping. The number of fatal overdoses with heroin is dropping. We're seeing cocaine go up, and we're seeing marijuana go up. I just got the wrap-up sign that I've gone over my time, actually. So I just wanted to thank you all. I'll be around if there's any questions or anything that I can answer. Please let me know. Thank you.